It is Monday, April 23rd, 2018, and this is the Monday Morning Analyst. Welcome, everyone. My name is Luke Thomas. I appreciate you guys joining me. Thank you so much. I'm the host of this program. On today's podcast, we're going to look at Kevin Lee versus Edson Barboza, the main event from UFC Atlantic City. As a disclaimer, you might hear some noise because I have some housework going on, but it shouldn't be too bad. I'll do my best to minimize it. I appreciate your patience while that's going on. So, in that main event, as I mentioned, Kevin Lee probably getting the best win of his career when he defeated Edson Barboza. Maybe defeated him worse than, in certain ways, Khabib Nurmagomedov did, although in certain ways that's not true. But here's what I want to do. Let's take a look at the tape and see if we can figure out, why did Kevin Lee beat Edson Barboza? What did he do that established the conditions, and what particular tactics and strategies did he employ that enabled him to have such, frankly, a dominant victory on the way to a fifth-round stoppage? Let's see what we can figure out. First things first, before we look at the tape, let's talk about the weight cut. He came in, Kevin Lee did, at 157 pounds. He would have had a 1 pound allowance. So, of course, for a title fight, no pound allowance. You have to make 155 on the nugget. Then there is a non-title fight. Even if it's our main event, you get a 1 pound allowance. He came in 1 pound above the 1 pound allowance. Now, there's no argument about this. It is unprofessional to not make weight. That'll never not be true. There are obviously circumstances where you can be a little bit more understanding. Let's say if somebody has some kind of an injury. But then if you are injured to the point where you can't make weight, should you even be fighting? That's not relevant here, but just sort of talking about it. There's never really an excuse to not make weight. And Kevin Lee had said on Friday when he missed that he ran out of time. And folks really didn't like that. I'm willing to split the difference on it. On the one hand, if you had 2 months or so to prepare for a contest, you had plenty of time to make weight. That is a bit of an issue. On the other hand, there is also no denying the math. A lot more fighters miss weight in those morning weigh-ins than not. The other thing to consider, that rules in New Jersey are a little bit weird. Had this fight taken place last week in Glendale, he would have had another 2 hours to cut and probably would have made that 156-pound limit. Folks, note that he missed his first attempt at Tony Ferguson, but he ultimately made it and had not missed weight in any of his previous UFC contests. So, something to consider there. The question is, how relevant is that for the outcome? My response would be probably not very. You never really know, but I don't really believe it. To me, this was a major skill differential issue, and it is possible that if he had drained himself to get down to another pound, would that draining have ultimately affected him late? Again, that's speculation, but I don't really think the 1 pound would have been all that relevant in terms of the outcome. And in terms of what we saw, was that 1 pound a bit of a difference? They might have been in the same weight by the time they got in there on Saturday night. So no, insofar as how much weight they did cut, I don't think it's relevant. The one argument you could maybe make is, would another pound of drainage affected him? It's all speculation. My belief is probably not, given how significant the skill differential was, and if he'd had 2 more hours, that 1 pound seemed very doable, but it's debatable and no one really knows. Here's what you can say: not professional. Not professional now, not professional later, not professional ever. It's not okay. And if this guy wants to be, and he will be, it seems to me, at 25 years old, in title fights, got to get that rectified, got to figure that out. All right? Now, with that out of the way, let's take a look at what we can, the fight footage, and then what we can say about it. I'm going to separate my analysis into 2 parts. And the reason why I'm going to do that is just for clarity's sake. Now, when you think about a game plan, it's all one kind of game plan that all bleeds together. Because if you really wanted to atomize it and fragment it all up into even more distinct parts, you could. But just for clarity's sake, to me, there was what he was doing on the feet and then what he was doing on the ground. 2 different scenarios. I want to talk about one and then the other a little bit separately. Let's start with on the feet. What was the key to what he was doing on the feet? Now, they noted that left-handed stance, which we're going to look at here in just a second. But why was that relevant? Now, he did go back and forth into the orthodox stance, but a couple of reasons. With that left-handed stance, he was open for the more powerful kicks. But you're going to notice when we look at the footage, he doesn't just walk in straight lines for the most part. Kevin Lee was circling, I believe, in a counterclockwise direction to go to the outside of Edson Barboza, so that rather than the kick impacting him here, if you move this way, the kick loses steam even if it impacts you at the end, plus it gives you more space to get away. Plus, if you're getting to that outside angle, that outside foot lead angle, it creates a lane for your own left or a right hook. That's another thing Kevin Lee was doing. He was throwing from this stance a right hook to push him in to the left hand. Now, you'll notice later on in the fight that he actually switches stances back to orthodox a little bit, and that opened him up for leg kicks. Barboza likes to throw body kicks from the left-handed stance or even head kicks from the left-handed stance. But what he really likes to do, or when an opponent's in a left-handed stance, but what he really likes it is when an opponent's in orthodox stance, because he likes the outside leg kick. That's what he really likes. If you stand in the southpaw position, he can't really do that to you. That's another reason why. So it sets up the left hand for you as you circle counterclockwise around him. It pressures him backwards. And, of course, even if it makes contact with you, you're kind of out of the way. That's why you want to stand in that left-handed stance. I also think it made a difference for his takedowns because you have the left leg of Barboza standing forward, which enables you to get on it a little bit quicker. So that's one reason why he had some success. He had good forward pressure as well. He wasn't really circling. He did a good job of cage cutting, of staying to the outside, then driving forward, staying to the outside, then driving forward, just enough to get Barboza behind the two black lines. And you're also going to notice, this is a little bit more relevant when we get to the ground portion, he doesn't really try a whole lot of takedowns in the center of the cage unless it's desperation. Beneil Dariush was a left-handed fighter as well, but Beneil was trying a lot of takedowns from that lead leg, that left lead leg of Barboza at the center. And in the center of the cage, Barboza has a great limp leg defense. Against the fence, as we saw against Nurmagomedov and against Lee, bit of a different story. So those are, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at a sort of a composite sketch. Now we're also going to look at what happened when he got hit with that spinning back kick. You're going to see it's all the things that were going right early, he stops doing for a minute, and Barboza makes him pay. We'll examine about that a little bit later, but I just sort of want to point out some of the conditions. That left-handed stance, as I mentioned, good forward pressure, as I mentioned. He's not trying any takedowns in the middle of the cage, except when he got a little desperate when he got hurt. But generally speaking, that's true. The other thing to notice is he doesn't really ever let, early on anyway, he doesn't let Barboza set his feet. When Barboza throws and then moves, he's in motion, right? That's what he's doing. He's getting out of the way. But as he does it, he has to stop for a second, recenter himself, and then he can throw. Kevin Lee did a pretty good job of whenever he set his feet to begin an attack, to make a read, to throw, even if it wasn't a kick, even if it was just a punch, Kevin Lee was on top of him, jabbing him, getting on top, staying active, throwing a kick, feinting, doing something, just initiating enough offense so Barboza really couldn't set his feet. That was another big consideration here. So I've talked about the setup here. Let's take a look at the footage. What we're going to look at here is really the first round for the entire fight. And what I mean is I don't have time to go through all the rounds. I got to make this podcast in the morning, hence the name, Monday Morning Analyst. But the first round basically tells you the entire story of the fight. We'll look at that third round hairy moment for Kevin Lee, but the first round is really what matters. So let's take a look at this now. I'm going to walk you through this, and I want you to take a look at what I'm looking at. Let's start with, of course, the stand-up portion of the game. Here we have the beginning. Now note something here. Okay, let me stop this for just a second. You can see Kevin Lee in the southpaw stance. I want you to pay attention. He's jabbing, and he's going to push Barboza backwards. Look at him circling. See how he's circling to the outside here? Now he's not doing so much cage cutting. He's just kind of staying away. But you're going to see him right here. Now he's going to giddy up into him. And let's go back just a second. I want you to pay attention to what happens here. He's circling to the outside. All right, now watch. He's going to come forward, right? He's leading with the jab here, by the way, getting off first. He takes that inside kick, throws the left hook behind it, and is going to press now forward. Now he's behind the two black lines. Look who's getting off first, getting to that angle first, although he doesn't have the inside, excuse me, he doesn't have the outside angle of the jab, but he's firing off first, pushing Barboza backwards. Another one, getting out of the way, or at least blocking. Keith Peterson there in the way, right? Now he's kind of standing in front of him a little bit. However, he's initiating offense, staying active, right? Barboza trying to find and reclaim that center. Kevin Lee keeping center, coming forward a little bit, changing up position. Instead of leading with the jab, now leading with it straight. But he's staying busy with the jab. You can't quite see the foot angle, though. He does a better job of getting it a little bit later. Still in the southpaw stance here. Hooking with the right to set up his own angle to shift. You notice that? One more time. Look here. All right. He's going to throw that and then step out to the side. That's going to enable him to not only set and keep the right angle, but also I think set the takedown later. Throwing heavy from that side. Look at him staying active. Anytime Barboza is setting his feet, let's go back here just a second. Look at this. Anytime Barboza is setting his feet, Kevin Lee is throwing, staying active, not waiting a second. Watch who throws first almost the entire majority of the time. He beats him there to the punch. Of course, Barboza gets just enough time to get a kick off. Incidental kick there lands. It's Kevin Lee pushing forward. Now he's beginning to cage cut. before you saw him sort of circling on the outside, he's still staying and fading out, but now he's beginning to cut off the angle to get him behind the two black lines, right? Leading with that overhook to get him to move this direction. So now he's steering as well, Edson Barboza. I'm going to throw this way to get you to go this way. That's going to line up my left hand, right? And it's going to line up some of my takedowns as well. And there he goes on that lead leg. Remember, you want to go on that lead leg right there. And then he's going to push him into the fence. And that's that. Okay? So a couple things I want to mention. I'm going to leave the screenshot up. A couple things I want to mention. What did you notice from all of that? You noticed that, again, that outside movement, he would cage cut a little bit with that forward pressure. He was leading with the offense. Either it was the jab or it was the hook to set up the left straight. That was a very common thing he was doing. Something else to always keep in mind as well, and it happens a few times later on in the fight, is that right knee from Barboza. That was the one that slept Beneil Dariush. Another reason to go southpaw like that and then to go to the outside is, one, you have to set up your takedowns, of course, behind your punches and everything else, and you have to get it in the right space. But he wanted to stay and fade away as much from that right knee as possible. Now, it doesn't mean that being in the southpaw stance keeps you away from it. Again, Dariush was in the southpaw stance, and he still got laced with it. But for Kevin Lee, the way he was using the southpaw stance enabled him to do that. So he's steering with his footwork, steering with his punches, staying out of the way of that right knee, staying out of the way of those kicks for the most part, being busy with the jab, cage cutting behind a jab, mixing things up with a level change or a left straight. And then, let's go back here very quickly. Look at when he threw. Here we are. Who's got the outside foot position? Let me click out. Who's got that outside foot position? It's Kevin Lee. Look at that. Outside foot position. I want to see how he sets this up. All right, here it is. And then just gets under the jab. He just waits for the jab, gets under it, grabs the leg, drives him to the fence, picks him up, and then he's going to drop him there. Great job by Kevin Lee. Didn't have to set up so much of his punches. He got under a strike. He waited till Edson Barboza sat and committed to a strike, got under it, and used that left-handed stance to get that outside leg, stay out of trouble. I'm not going to the inside lane, head outside single, or head outside double in this case. But he's not really worried too much, of course, about being choked. He's getting the nearest leg to him. Sort of an economy of motion there, staying away from the dangerous side of Edson Barboza, waiting till he commits. Like, everything about this is just textbook. Everything about this is excellent. Everything about this is smart, sharp. He did a really great job. There are times he gets caught. We'll look at that in just a second. But to me, he was competitive in the stand-up, which you can see even in the orthodox position. He was beating Edson Barboza to the punch there too, for the most part, although Barboza was a little bit more active with kicks when they went to orthodox. But it's the ground. The ground is really where he wins. Let's take a look at that footage now. We should state this plainly. Kevin Lee's ground and pound is phenomenal. It's very different than Khabib Nurmagomedov's. People were comparing the two, but it's actually pretty different. Khabib doesn't mind it if you can get to... I mean, he prefers you to be on your back like everybody else does, but he's not a heavy passer. He doesn't like going super far to side control for very long or for mount. He doesn't mind using leg rides. He doesn't mind using half guard. Kevin Lee's very different in that regard. He passes all the way to mount. Mount is a bit of a lost art in mixed martial arts, but somebody like Kevin Lee is recapturing it and showing you everything old is new again, right? Because people abandon things, and then someone can pick them up back later and then show you how valuable it is when the rest of the game has not effectively employed it. But what were the reasons and the strategies that Kevin Lee employed to be so good on the ground? Number one, of course, the setup of the takedown was great, waiting to be behind the two black lines, pushing him against the fence. He tried to take down Edson Barboza in space. He's got a brilliant limp leg. So it's not that. It's different. Number one, he always stood on his feet to strike, to open the guard. Edson Barboza is pretty good about guard retention, or at least guard recapturing, and Kevin Lee wouldn't fight that too hard. He would kind of let Barboza do it. But then what would he do? He would stand on his feet. Why do you want to stand on your feet? Because the minute you stand, you put yourself in a more advantageous position to pass. It's easier to break their legs off of you. Plus, once the legs are open, now you're on your feet. You're a lot more mobile than you are on your knees. Number two, you can rain down heavier punishment if you're standing on your feet, right? So he always stood on his feet, and then strikes to open the guard. The guard comes open, and that's when the pressure passing begins. And it's a lot of active passing, right? He is really good about once he's on his feet. He's using a stack pass where he sucks his hips on you and then turns them over. He's really good about that. He's really good about making you extend yourself and getting to side. The problem with this fight is the camera angles are really bad, so I can't give you a great examination of why he got to mount. It's hard to see. I can say some things about it, and we'll go through the tape. But nevertheless, it is that he is seeking mount is so unusual in this day and age. And he's got a very good ride. He kind of anticipates which way guys are going to turn. Your mount has to change. There's not one mount. Saulo Ribeiro is known for having a mount on the hips, mount on the rib cage, and then mount right underneath the armpits. There's also a mount from three-quarter guard. Three-quarter mount. There's a mount from when they turn to the side. There's lots of different kinds of mount, and you have to know those positions and be able to ride them. And Kevin Lee does. He's very, very good at that. Very heavy top control. And of course, here's the other thing that he does. Khabib uses a different strategy to get here. But what Kevin Lee does is he likes to pass. And when he's passing, he's very good about his passing. He's very mobile. He's very quick. He's very athletic. Very technical too. But when he's passing or he's going to knee on belly or he's in three-quarter mount, he forces opposition to use their hands. Well, when they use their hands, he can either set up some kind of tie-up like a gift wrap, which we're going to look at, or if I have to use my hands to stop you from passing around the side, which we'll look at again in video footage. Number one, always a bad sign. If someone's passing and the other person is just holding up their hands to stop the pass, it's really, really bad. That person is passing is any good. It's almost a guaranteed lock. You can set your watch to it that the pass is going to happen. If they hold it for just a second and then do something else, that's fine. But I'm talking like a prolonged, they're just holding their hands up, they're always a bad sign. And you're going to see a lot of that here. But when your hands are occupied, that's fine for Kevin Lee. He can find some other way to anchor the position and then pound on you. He's really, really good about that. Plus, if I move to mount, you can't just, sometimes you can just roll and turn someone from mount, but if they got a really good mount, you have to think about mount as climbing your way up a ladder. You have to do it in stages, right? You can't just jump to the top of the ladder. You have to climb your way up there. Well, if I have to climb my way up there and this person can just sit on me the entire time, they're going to pound on me because my hands are occupied with the nature of the climbing. Whether he's getting a forearm against the hips to push back Kevin Lee, whether he has to get a hand on a knee so he can turn one way and then shrimp out so he can recapture half guard. You're going to see Edson Barboza's body is occupied and worried about alleviating the pressure of the position and the control that is afforded from that position, which frees up Kevin Lee to just bang on him. All right, so let's take a look at the footage. All right, here we're just going to look at this. We're going to go through. Here he is. He grabs the leg and drives to the fence. All right, so this is the part we saw from the stand-up department. Now, what's he going to do? He gets up under, gets his hands together. You're going to see him drive a knee in the middle. See that? That's going to enable him to get his hips close and then to pick up underneath the rear end, bring his hips underneath the hips of Edson Barboza, and then drop him right now. Now, Edson Barboza is in a good spot here, right? Because he can just lock up full guard. We're going to go through this. Although you can see Kevin Lee getting one leg up as a bit of a shelf there, but not a real shelf in the way that's most helpful. But let's go through this, all right? And Edson Barboza right away trying to establish some kind of head control. Kevin Lee doing a good job of bicep control. You see who's got the inside tie there. He's going to can opener here for a little bit, and there's no need. Now look, what do you see right away? Kevin Lee's on his feet. The guard is open. Once the guard is open like that and you're on your feet, if you can get past the legs, you're in an advantageous position because you can just move. You don't have to wait for the guard to get open, then get on your feet, and then try and get around the corner. You're enabling yourself to get the maximum amount of this position once this person begins to create opportunities for you. So let's go through this. The can opener is really no need because the guard is open, but he's also kind of using it as like a dirty box element where if I hold the head here, I can then pound on it and get a little bit more out of it as a consequence. So let's take a look at this footage here. And some parts I might play, some parts I might go through slow. All right. He's just kind of feeling him out, trying to get his balance, see what he's got. He's going to get on his feet now. Boom. On both feet. Right? What does he have? Leaning into him, driving his hips into the back of the legs, the hamstrings of Edson Barboza to hold him in place like that. Right? What's he going to do? Now look at the guard. Before he was behind the hips of Kevin Lee. Now he's in front of him. That's going to be automatically pretty terrible. You see Kevin Lee driving his hips in like that. Why? Because it puts pressure all the way down. Also, it would enable him to clear any foot away. If they've got a foot on your hip and you can drive the foot out, it enables you to take the leg and then bring it across, let's say leg drag style, something like that, right? So you see him try to push it away and drive the leg past him, just as I mentioned. And now he's leaning into it. He can't quite get past it. He can drive that through if he wants for some kind of half guard. Let's sort of play this to get a little bit faster here. We can always go back. What's he going to do? All right, he tries a bit of a stack there, but you're not going to get it if someone has a butterfly hook. Plus, he can take the hands and just push them off. So you see that. So what's he going to do? All right, still forcing him down, still weighing him down. Crossing him up like this enables you a little bit to go around, depending on which side you pick and what kind of pass you want. But it eventually goes to side. So how does he do it? So Barboza gets all crossed up here. Let's go back real quickly. So here's Barboza. Now he's square with him here, and you can see on one side is one hip and shin, and one side is the other. Kevin Lee is going to sort of turn him like this. So now that the hip that is crossing underneath, it's not as powerful. It's fine if I'm facing you and I have my shin in your hip like that. But if I can turn you, there's the amount of push I can get essentially goes away. The other leg isn't doing anything, so now I can just throw it by, just like that. You see that? And then he covers position really well. He's good about getting his hips low. Now look at now look at Edson Barboza's hands. What is he really required to do here? Use them to push away so he can shrimp back and find a guard again. Kevin Lee on a side here, and then just jumps to mount because Edson Barboza has to get on an elbow. He has to get on an elbow to stand. It creates a wide open opportunity. And he doesn't just take mount forward. You'll notice he takes mount here in a circle. See that? Almost kind of try and take the back a little bit, which enables him to come down here. So he drives to mount right away. This tells you not only has good mount technique, it's just a very natural position for him. He's grabbing the wrist. That pulls him back down straight. Because look, before, the elbow's up. Now, there's no elbow. See that? Bringing him right back down. So now, this is not a very high mount. And you can see that because Edson Barboza is going to bring this leg around like that. Now he's back in half guard, at least temporarily. But you can see the hands are occupied. He needs them to get to an elbow like this to escape. Here, he's trying to push away so he can bring his left leg out. See that space he's trying to create? He wants to bring the left leg out so he can re-guard. Kevin Lee comes down on top of it, and you can see the knee kind of drives through, and he sort of gets it. Let's fast forward through this a little bit. And they kind of push off the fence here. But, all right, so here's another thing that he does. Let's go back and look at this because there's a lot happening here. So Kevin Lee is a very good pressure passer. There's all kinds of passing. There's mobile passing, pressure passing. There's all kinds. So here you have Kevin Lee push down the leg, right? Edson Barboza, let's go through this just a little bit here. Follow the right leg of Edson Barboza. It's the left leg that looks like Kevin Lee's trying to pass. And as he does that, the right leg goes down, right? And you see that there. And then he turns to a hip. He actually gives Barboza the opportunity to roll. But when Edson Barboza goes down like that, now look at the left leg. Excuse me, the right leg of Barboza. It's underneath the body of Kevin Lee. That's all Kevin Lee needs. Look at Kevin Lee putting his body weight now on both knees and then just going to the side. Boom, just like that. Look at that. Brilliant, right? And he's going to use that other leg to sweep on top and then come right over as he needs to. Putting your body weight on both knees, collapsing them to a side. It controls your hips, of course, and it creates an opportunity for passing. Now, Barboza is going to still struggle here, and then Kevin Lee, you can see, is just going to bring his knee through. He's going to slide it one way and then slide it the other. Let's see how he does it. Couldn't quite get it through that time. All right, but here is something that Kevin Lee is really good at. Now, look at this. This is shoulder pressure. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not quite right because he can't get it as long as he can't get it appropriately. As there's lots of different kinds of shoulder pressure. The best kind is when you can get your shoulder right on their neck. However, one thing you're going to have to pay attention to with Kevin Lee that he's very good at, he's very good at applying shoulder pressure, or at least getting the arms up of Edson Barboza to control the shoulders and the neck. If he can control the shoulders and the neck, there's not much the hips can do, and it opens up all kinds of passing lanes here. So let's go through this. You're going to see him try and establish some kind of control here. And the more Edson Barboza's elbows get away from his body, the more of a problem it is. So let's see how he does this to set it up. Now that is worse. Once you get the arm wrapped around the face, no good. That is very bad for you, right? Very bad for you, especially someone like Kevin Lee who's very good at it. Now, you saw him recompose guard. Barboza did. So what do you think Kevin Lee's going to do? He's going to probably get on his feet, right? Let's see. Let's see what he does. As we go through this here, look, right on his feet. Like I told you. He gets on his feet, he's going to strike to open, and when it opens, then he finds his pass. Let's see how he does it. Boom, there it comes open. You see that? Look at that. Soon as he punches, watch this. As soon as he punches, let me squeeze out here. Boom, guard opens. That's exactly what he wants. Because you can't hold guard and just get banged on. You got to move. So watch what Kevin Lee does. There's a foot in the hip by Barboza. That's good, right? Keeping him at bay. But Kevin Lee's just going to find an opportunity to get around this here. And his posture is a little bit like, if Barboza was a really good guard player, you could have swept him there, like some kind of balloon sweep. Now watch this. He's going to hold his wrist. He's going to drive him back like that. But you got to sit up at the exact same time. He does not. He does not follow. It's no good if you don't sit up at the exact same time. He doesn't. So what is Kevin Lee going to do? He pulls him. I want you to look at this. He almost does like a treetop takedown, right? Where if he was standing. He's going to take that leg and he's going to use that to drive him back so that Barboza's on his shoulders. Like that. You see that? Now he's going to come under, double under scoop, right? Here's what he's going to do. Stacks him on his shoulders. Now, you see Barboza. What is he immediately trying to do? He doesn't want to get stacked on his shoulders. He's immediately trying to slide his shoulders back and get his hips to the mat. That is exactly what you want to do, but he can't quite get it. Kevin Lee is going to bring his hips. He's going to bring the hips of Barboza right on top of his. You're going to see that right here. And then what he's going to do is you just drive him down. Renzo Gracie has a great example of this. You want to make them smell their own knee, so bring their knee to their face. He doesn't quite do it. There is some space there. And then he's just going to pop the head. He's going to pop the leg off the head. Watch, see how that leg is on the head of Kevin Lee? Pops it off. See that? That's good. And look at Barboza doing this. If you see somebody doing that, terrible sign. Terrible sign. That means you're about to get passed. Now, the one key here is Barboza's hips are still kind of elevated. Kevin Lee has to do more than just pop his head off. You got to pop your head, and then he would have to get his hips facing away. Right now, the hips of Kevin Lee are facing down, but you would want them facing away. But he's eventually going to get it. He's going to drive him down. He's going to reset the position here a little bit. Watch. Steps around. He's going to pull the seal. He sucks him back in. Just quick kind of sucks him back in. And see, the hips of Kevin Lee are still down. They would need to be facing us at this point, which he doesn't quite do, but he still sucks him over, pressures him in, right? And then just drives his weight down. Boop. Just like that. Brings the knee inside. Just like that. And then wraps the head for a crossface. Very good MMA passing. Very good, right? Let's watch this through. And then slides all the way to mount. And watch how... See, I need the camera to be face down. I can't see much from here. And then he's just going to... Look, takes mount very effortlessly. Edson Barboza on his back. Boop, comes right over to mount like that. And Barboza immediately rolls to that side. I would have rolled the other way. I mean, who am I? It doesn't matter. I'm saying I think a lot of people would have rolled into Kevin Lee. You kind of want to roll the way they come. It's a little bit easier to capture a leg that way. But you see Edson Barboza's hands. He's got an arm. Look at Edson Barboza's forearm. He's got it in the hips. That's right. Other hand might go on the knee, which you use to push and then get your own leg on the outside. But it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. If you're getting pounded on, it's going to be a lot harder. And you see him still trying to roll. Look at Kevin Lee. Now, there he goes. You see, hold on, let's go back here real quick. Well, look at the right leg of Kevin Lee. Okay, look at Barboza. He's trying to shove that knee between his own legs. Kevin Lee rides the position, brings it up and over again. He's just deadly with the mount. Deadly with the mount, right? So let's keep going. Boom, banging on him, banging on him. There's Barboza. He captures the left leg this time, right? Because he's against the fence, so he goes the other direction. So that's good. He's got that. And Kevin Lee still has the head wrapped, right? Now look at this. He is putting all of his weight on top of that shoulder. That's going to control the head and shoulders of Barboza and allow him, if he wants, to pass, which is what he does. He gets the instep out, and then he comes right around again. There's another version of this which we'll look at later, so I'll show you how he does this, and just stays in mount and bangs on him. Now watch this. There he is again. Barboza is trying to shrimp out and come around and capture the leg in between. How does he get the gift wrap? Very simply. Let's go back and look at it very quickly. He gets the gift wrap really easily. There's no gift wrap here. What's he doing? So the red glove is Barboza. The blue glove is Kevin Lee. Watch what happens here. Barboza, he wraps behind the head, Kevin Lee does with the right hand. The left arm is trying to wrap, or at least Kevin Lee is holding it almost like an armbar style. And so he puts it on the ground. Barboza does, puts it across his body. So Kevin Lee uses that to just make the switch. Watch this. And then just comes around and grabs it. In other words, if I'm taking your hand and I'm driving it to the ground, you can now take your other hand and come around and grab mine. And now it's getting pulled across my body. You see that? He's using his own defense against him by just coming around and sneaking around the backside. Very, very sneaky. Very sneaky by Kevin Lee. This is what I mean. People are like, well, how much does the 1 pound allowance matter? I mean, look, again, not making weight is unprofessional, but look at the skill differential here. It's an extraordinary skill differential. You know, if you're gift wrapping a guy as talented as Edson Barboza, it's hard for me to be overly concerned about the 1 pound. It really just is. It's not that you can't. It's not that it's okay. It's not okay. You got to make weight. You got to be professional. You can cost yourself a lot of money and opportunities down the line, driving, of course, the hand across. But I don't know how you can watch this tape and look at it and say, "Wow, that 1 pound really it aided him." No, there's a major skill gap here. Okay, real quickly, look at this. This is what I'm talking about. He's real good about wrapping the head. You see that crossface? How do you know the crossface is deep? The shoulder, the front of the delt is underneath and right on top of the jaw. And the elbow of Kevin Lee, look at the right elbow of Kevin Lee. It's on the mat. So he's got a perfect triangle. Let me see if I can get in the frame here. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Chin, elbow touching, wrist touching, like that. When you get the elbow up like that, it's not as good. Elbow's down. That's how you know it's good. Look at that. If he wants to, he can control him, which you'll see later on he does. So now they're against the fence. They're going forward. About a minute left. This is just pure torture, right? But he's still just holding position. And you can see, what is Edson Barboza doing this whole time? Trying to shrimp back to guard. And he's getting banged on, and he gets it again. All right, full guard. What do we think Kevin Lee's going to do? He's probably going to get on his feet to pass. Let's watch. He's going to strike to do it. There he is, right back to his feet. He's going to throw a strike to open the guard. Let's see if it does. Guard's kind of open now, and then right away, as soon as he's punching, not only does the guard come open, he begins to shift the guard. And that openness is what allows Kevin Lee to just do what he does, right? Boom. And then he's just going to use the same pass as before. He's a little bit further away. It's the same pass, right? And then he's going to wrap the head, as you always want to do, cross face. Even if you're in side control or half guard, that's perfect, right? Lets it go, and then just Barboza just lets him have that one. I would need to see, again, the camera work is not great here because it doesn't allow me to see what I need to see, but you get the idea here a little bit. And Barboza, look at him. What can he do? He's just trying to hold the body and recapture his space underneath, and he can't do it. Now, this is what I mean. Watch this shoulder pressure. The shoulder pressure is going to pin Barboza's head, neck, and shoulders to the mat. And from that, it's going to allow Kevin Lee to use the instep to pull out the other leg. Watch this very slowly. Watch this. Why isn't Barboza bucking? Because that pressure up top is killing him. Watch this. Instep, grinds. Look at how twisted and contorted the spine is of Kevin Lee, but pay attention to the only part that matters. This part. Look at him driving his own shoulder into position there. Right? That's what you want to be looking at. He's going to use that instep, and then the other leg's going to slide off, and then he's going to come around. Look at Barboza bucking. He can barely buck. It's because he's being controlled. He's being controlled up top. That's how he gets it. He has very, very good pressure passing, Kevin Lee. He gets that shoulder pressure in there, and you are locked up here. You cannot move. You can move your hips a little bit, but you are locked in that space. And then let's see him finish this off. It's the same thing. Comes up, brings the leg up like that, right, to balance the position, expecting a roll. He's good about just leaving a knee on top as you try to shrimp out and around, and then he can just bang on you, just like that. Boom. And he's good about never, by the way, letting Barboza get the underhook on the same side. He cannot underhook. If you notice that, he always gets the underhook to go past him, and then he puts, Kevin Lee does, his body on top of it. Look at that. See that? There's no underhooking by Barboza. He can't do it. And then he just gets pounded on from here. Pretty sophisticated stuff. Simple in its brutality, I suppose, but very good. He is very good. Kevin, look, it's not that Khabib doesn't want to pass, but I don't think he's quite as skilled of a passer. Kevin Lee is a very skilled passer. He's gonna use punishment to open you once you open. He likes to use either stack passes or other kinds of like leg drag style passes. He didn't do a leg drag style exactly this one, but that same kind of thing is what he wants to get the leg past him, come around from there, either from half, all the way from side control, whatever. He finds mount, he holds mount, he rides mount. He has a good understanding of where mount needs to be in order to do the kinds of things he likes to do. He's nasty. Kevin Lee did a great job, but he almost got caught. Let's look at what went wrong for him there. Here's where Kevin Lee got caught. I want you to pay attention to what's happening here. You'll notice he's in the orthodox stance. I'm going to let this play over and over again. But the major reason why he gets caught is you'll notice, number one, I think he switched to the orthodox stance because he just felt more comfortable. Well, rather, he started out in southpaw as a strategic move. And I think when he felt he was very competitive with Barboza on the feet, he didn't mind going back to orthodox. But I want you to pay attention for some of the reasons he gets caught here. For me, it's that you'll notice the cage cutting is okay, but the bigger reason is that, I'm going to play this here for myself here so I can see it as well. You're going to see as he comes around, he's sort of doing some of the right things in terms of striking, but he's not. He's just letting Barboza set and engage. Right? You'll notice that he's just kind of following a little bit. He's not leading with the offense. Barboza, when he's moving laterally, can't do anything, but when he's setting in motion forward and backward, it's a little bit better for him. Or when he's just setting his feet all together, that's when he can really throw. And Kevin Lee didn't do a lot when he was standing in that orthodox moment to challenge that. To me, the bigger issue there, when I look at this, is that he got a little complacent in the middle of that fight. I think he got very confident about how things were going, understandably given what we saw. But the real issue there is not that the left-handed stance or the right-handed stance mattered, but that he got into the right-handed stance because he got comfortable. And when he got comfortable, he wasn't disrupting the timing. He wasn't active enough with his offense. He was letting Barboza set his feet. He was letting Barboza get comfortable. And when Barboza gets comfortable, then he can throw. And obviously, he's very dangerous whenever you let him do that. And by the way, folks are asking, did Barboza handle this correctly? You know, who knows? I mean, yes, he could have done better in terms of separating and getting out of there, but when you're as tired and beat up as he was, it's easier said than done. So the reason, in my judgment, that Kevin Lee got caught, he wasn't disrupting the footwork and the balance and the timing and the motion of Edson Barboza enough. Got a little too complacent in the middle of that fight. And last but not least, we take a look at what's coming up in the week ahead. The answer is, well, no UFC, but there is a big Bellator event. Bellator 198. This takes place at the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, outside of Chicago. Bellator 198, of course, main evented by Fedor Emelianenko taking on Frank Mir. This is part of the Heavyweight Grand Prix. Also on that card, Emmanuel Sanchez versus Sam Sicilia. Rafael Lovato Jr. versus John Salter on that main card. Neiman Gracie versus Javier Torres. And then Dylan Dennis will make his professional MMA debut at a 175-pound catchweight against Kyle Walker. There are fights on the prelim card. Nothing to really write home about. There was supposed to be on May 5th a big boxing fight, but that is now off. We all know the story there. So be on the lookout for Bellator 198 to cap off a crazy month of April. If you have any questions, comments, bitches, gripes, and smart-ass remarks, shoot me an email, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. Appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much, and until next time, enjoy the fights.